Right, we're back. It's episode 4 of our half marathon bootcamp series. And I don't know about you, but as a person training for a half marathon as we speak,
Yes.
I feel like I'm hitting the crunch point.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I think with your race day, which is kind of mid-March,
Yeah.
at this point in any training plan, sort of 6 weeks out, this is a really tough time because this is when the mileage at the long run is going to be really long, and the sessions in between don't feel little anymore. So
that's the main thing. I feel like my long runs have been long for a while, but my sessions in between are really starting to ramp up, and that's meaning that the long run feels harder. So maybe we're going to talk about speed today, but maybe let's caveat from the very beginning by saying, look after yourselves.
Yeah, but also, okay, so episode 4 is the speed episode. But I think what we need to be saying right at the beginning is that speed is completely personal.
Yeah.
What is fast for one person is not fast for another person. And again, with slow. So as with all of the things that we're talking about, I think your only comparison should be yourself. And even then you have to do that gently. So don't worry. If you don't see yourself as being a fast runner, what we're talking about is running faster, not running like Superman alongside the train.
Yeah.
Your fast is your fast. Okay. So stop that right now if you've got any of those kind of thoughts in your head about not being a fast runner.
Yeah. Faster is definitely the, that's the appropriate term, isn't it? And I think also it goes without saying that if you are listening to this and you're training for your first ever half marathon, then even if you're doing your second or your third, you might not want to go faster. That's fine. Your goal, it's absolutely okay for your goal to be cross the finish line and see what happens, or even have a slightly nicer time than last time if you've done one before and it was really tough. Or there are plenty of ways that we can measure those goals. I know Esther and I bleat on and say that all the time in various ways, but genuinely speed is not the only measure of success or how to kind of achieve it's not the only achievement in running, and in particularly in half marathon running, which is big distance that you're covering. But it is also a common goal. It's one that I'm working on at the moment. If you found yourself, if you've run a few halves, or if you have quite a lot of running experience, you've done quite a few speedy 10Ks, or you're quite comfortable with that sort of middle distance, then running a half marathon that feels like you're pushing yourself and you're going a little bit faster than your sort of comfortable, easy pace might be something that is on your wish list. So that's the sort of thing that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. And I mean, so we've got quite a lot of sort of, I guess, weird running terms that we can kind of bring up today that you might see on your training plan. The things that you might see that are supposed to be there to help you get faster. But lots of these we covered off in the last episode. So if you haven't listened to that, do go back to episode 3. And
I think actually it might have been episode 2. I think we did strength last time, didn't we?
Yes. Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. Episode 2, we talk about the different sorts of sessions that you see in your training plan, because one of the main reasons those sessions are different and weird and not just run for half an hour, run for 40 minutes, but they're actually sort of, you have to do something a bit different in them. A lot of those reasons are to run a bit faster on your half marathon day, and to run easier, like you were just saying. But those two things can sometimes go hand in hand. So I know that when I have trained averagely, so just about done the miles I'm supposed to do, but not really the sessions that I'm supposed to do for a half marathon or for a marathon, I get round and it's okay. But I get round a lot easier and a lot happier if I do those technical sessions. I don't necessarily run that much faster, but sometimes I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's sort of slightly by accident. So And I think that's kind of worth bearing in mind, that if you train consistently, if you follow a training plan, and that includes speed and interval sessions in the middle of the week, it's almost inevitable that you will get faster. So
I think it is. Like, we, on our main series, you have not heard it yet, but you will hear a conversation coming up soon with a lovely coach who we talk to in a bit of expert detail about what's actually happening and what sessions we need to do to kind of shave a bit of time off our pace. And I think that was sort of, I found that really interesting, that like, I think we can all get faster. Like, she kind of genuinely said that that's something that we can all do. Obviously, that speed is going to be relative based on, I don't know, genetics, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I know, for example, I'm never going to be Ailish McColgan, much to my sadness, but I never knew that I could get faster. I think I just put in my mind, like, this is the pace that I run at. And I hear runners do it all the time. Like, when we're talking about our running with each other, then we'll always be like, oh, I'm this kind of a pace person, or and actually in the space of a year, taking seriously interval training and actually identifying what my different paces are. I know we're going to talk about that in a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
And genuinely sticking to them. So that doesn't always mean running faster. That sometimes means forcing myself to run slower.
Yeah.
I have managed to shave a good chunk, like maybe about a minute off my kind of relative pace, whether that's my easy, my fast, or my kind of steady pace. I think each one of those is a bit quicker.
So why don't we talk about that? Why don't we talk about paces? Because with speed, there comes the word pace, and it can be really befuddling if you're looking at your watch or you're looking at a plan, and it says things like, run at your 10K pace, run at your half marathon pace, run at your marathon pace. It's really befuddling if you've not done those races before, just to begin with. And it's really befuddling if you sort of consider yourself running roughly, like as I did up until about 2 years ago, running everything roughly at the same pace. The thing is, you actually don't run everything at the same pace, but you don't notice this until you start stepping up into longer distances. Even if you're not following a training plan or following your watch or whatever, you will be slower over longer distances. And that is the same for me and for Hol as it is for Ailish McColgan. She does not run the marathon at the same pace that she runs 400 meters.
No.
So all these things are different. It really helps once you have run, like if you're working for a half marathon, if you run a 10K, it really, really helps to have that number in mind, how long it took you to run a 10K, because that can predict how fast you will run a half marathon. But I think a big trap that people will fall into is that if they can run a 10K, if they run a 10K in, say, an hour, they can fall into a trap of thinking, I can run a half marathon, which is double the distance, in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works.
I did that with my marathon. Do you remember? I basically just doubled the time it took to run a half marathon. And then I was really disappointed on the day when I was like 40 minutes longer than that. And actually that works out pretty bang on in terms of the kind of rough rule of like double that time and add about 20% or whatever it is. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, the 10K to half marathon, there's a very, very simple equation. If you want to run it as comfortably as you've run that 10K, which is you times your 10K time by 2.2, I think, roughly. And that gives you a rough half marathon. And I can't remember what the half marathon to marathon is, but it's times 2 plus, quite a big chunk.
A bit more.
And then also bear in mind, actually, I know we're talking about something, this is very tangential, but tangential.
Can that be right?
That can't be right, can it?
That's what happens if you take off the paper pants they give you in a tanning booth.
Okay, rewind. Going off a tangent, I'm going to say, because I don't want to say that again.
I loved it. I completely was with you until the cogs ticked into place.
Okay. Skipping slowly after. Right. So, I've actually forgotten where I am. Where am I?
Sorry. How can we come back from tangential? You were saying something really interesting as well.
I had a point to make about. Oh yeah, the other thing that can add time onto your race day time that you would not expect if you're aiming for a certain pace is temperature. It's weather. So I then, after you did your marathon and you were like a bit annoyed at your finish time, I remember sending you something that I found somewhere on Google, which is actually you need to add about 20 minutes for every kind of 5 degrees hotter it is when you run your race than it has been normally in your training. So in fact, you probably came under, if anything.
There are so many reasons why.
So many reasons.
I think that was going to not be the day I thought it was.
But we can talk about all of that. I'm sure we've got a race day episode coming up, so we can talk about those sorts of things in terms of planning and prep. But in terms of pace, before you start thinking, oh, I do 10K in an hour, so therefore I'm going to do my half marathon in 2 hours. Start from a place of realism and figure out roughly how long it would take you to run a half marathon based on how long it's taken you to run 10K before you start aiming for the sky. And we work from there.
There's nothing wrong with aiming for the sky in the sense that like it's great to have self-belief and it's great to have a goal, even if that goal is quite tricky. My goal at the moment, full transparency, involves shaving 15 minutes off my half marathon time, so it's no joke. But I think it is also nice to have a realistic goal and to have a bit of an idea about how far into the stars you might be able to shoot, because you don't want to just be mean to yourself and give yourself a goal that you're never going to hit. It's going to take you maybe a lot longer to kind of hit that kind of time, and then end up being like, oh, I've failed, or I feel rubbish because I didn't do that, when actually you were setting yourself up for something really, 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 really tricky anyway.
Exactly. I mean, do you remember a few years back when me and you were going to, well, I say a few years back, it was definitely in COVID. Me and you were running a virtual half, and I literally woke up on the morning. No, I think it might have been the night before, but the night before that race, I went to bed. It wasn't a race because we were doing it virtually. I went to bed thinking to myself, you know what? I'm going to cut 5 minutes off my half marathon time. I hadn't trained for it. I had not planned or trained for it until the night before, where I thought, I'm going to do this pace. I'm going to do it all the way through. And of course I failed. It did result in my biggest PB and my standing PB for a half marathon distance. But it also resulted in the most uncomfortable half marathon I have ever run. So the biggest takeaway I would put here for anyone attempting to shave some time off a half marathon is to plan and prep. Like, don't wake up in the morning and think, do you know what? I might do this.
Maybe I've got it in the legs today. And I actually think, again, slight spoilers from our main episode in a couple of weeks' time, when we're going to be talking about speed with an actual coach. But I think one of the things that she mentioned that really stuck with me as well is, oh my gosh, what is going on with us? I've now completely forgotten what it is. Hang on, it'll come back to me. It's planning and prepping. Oh, and it's also potentially, even if you do have one of those little moments of like, maybe I have got it in the legs today, like maybe everything is aligning and things are feeling really, really good, there is nothing to stop you from doing that in the sort of second half or last sort of 20% of your race, if you want to kind of gun for it at the end. But I particularly think in something like a half marathon, I wouldn't start really picking up the pace unless I was feeling absolutely fantastic at the halfway point. And if we're talking really picking up the pace, like to a level that feels like, you know, a bit uncomfortable, or paces that I'd not really been doing in training, I don't think I'd start playing with that unless I had like sub 5K left to go.
I think I even read that this morning. It was like 16K. Wait until you're 16K and then push it.
But, well, you know, we're geniuses.
That's yeah. I mean, what we can talk about. Oh, hang on a minute, because again, this is race day stuff, isn't it? But it's not setting off too quick, isn't it? At the start, it's so easy to run too fast in like the second and third mile when you've calmed down a bit, and you just think, oh, you know what, this feels really easy. And then I guarantee, if you've not trained for it, at mile 11, you will hate your mile 2 self. So,
and you don't realize that you'll hate her. You don't know you're going to hate her. I think that's the thing that I still to this day, I'm like, well, it must just be a really good day. I must just be, I never get my head around the fact that I will slow down if I carry on at this pace. I just think, well, this is my pace today. Wow.
Yeah.
I never ever, why don't I realize? But yeah, it is, you will be so much more grateful to yourself if you do and actually before the most recent half that I did, which was a bit speedier because I've been doing a lot of training for that one, my best half marathon time and my most fun, still to this day, 100% my most fun half marathon was last year, where I was training for the London Marathon. So obviously my fitness level was a little bit higher anyway. And I did pretty slow and steady, quite gentle first half, and then went, okay, maybe I'll do a little bit of a negative split and I'll go a bit faster for the second half of of this half marathon. And I have zero regrets taking it slowly in that first half. It meant that I enjoyed the full 13 miles rather than the opposite way around, I think would have been another story.
Yeah. I mean, some people do that, but that's not where we're coming from for this episode, I don't think.
No, that's true. I think if you're super elite, you might be listening to this and be like, shut up. But
yeah,
we're talking from the perspective of gentle plodders here.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of gentle plodders, actually, shall we talk a little bit about, did we explain those paces? I don't think we quite have yet, have we? Because we've always considered ourselves to be gentle plodders and therefore thought that is our only, that's our sort of default setting, that there's no kind of other ways of running that we've like got in the tank. But that's not true, is it?
Yeah, it's not true. It's not true at all. I mean, I can be completely transparent about my, like when we're talking about 10K, half marathon and marathon times, I can be transparent about mine to show you that I do run at different paces, even though I think that I don't. So I ran a 10K recently and did it in, oh no, not recently, but the one that I think I draw on, one of my PBs at 10K is 58 minutes.
Amazing.
And yeah, pretty proud of myself. Can't remember which one that was, but that's the one I did. But full disclosure, I don't really like 10Ks because I do find them too fast. I don't think I set out to get a specific time in that particular one. But when you set off in a particular wave, you tend to be around people that are all kind of running roughly that kind of pace. So that's what I ended up doing. I could never have sustained that pace for a longer distance than 10K. So my 10K, so that's 58. My half marathon kind of timings are anywhere between, well, I had 2:06 last year, but then 2:09 to 2:15. So somewhere between 2:06 and 2:15, that's my half marathon. So you can already see like how many more minutes that is to sort of double it up. It's not doubled, it's, there's a bit on top. And then my marathon pace, I think the quickest I've ever done is a shade under 4:30, but really it's more like 4:45. So again, 2 hours 10 doubled plus 20 minutes is what you're talking about there. So I have all those different paces. In training, I use my watch to help me with my pace. And I know that you use your phone to help with yours, don't you?
I do. I have to hold my hands up and say it's probably not recommended. I think I've got to a point, because I've never really run with a watch. I've got to a point where I sort of know what each pace feels like in my legs now. So I use my phone to double check, and every mile it will remind me, or every kilometer, it will remind me, like in my ear, what pace I'm going. And then I'm like, great, sweet. But I think, got like weird robot legs at this point where I can just go 9-minute miles, 10-minute miles or whatever to them, and they'll
No,
obey.
that's great. I remember people saying that, it's muscle memory. It's a good idea to have that in your head. But like with the pacing, I've made a note to myself that we should make sure that we kind of talk about the pacing, about what it feels like to run, because rather than thinking about what number that is on a watch or on a phone or whatever, I really like that kind of a rate of perceived exertion. So if you use the kind of scale of how hard is this, and then that gives you a rough idea of what your pace is, basically your pace for you, not your pace for time. And so if you think about the kind of running that you might do in a training plan, so the easy run, a steady pace, a half marathon pace, I would say my steady and my half marathon might be quite similar.
Me too.
And then, what's really weird is you do quite a lot of your training runs running faster than the pace will be when you run the half marathon. So then you start talking about 10K pace or more of a sort of tempo kind of threshold effort or whatever. But so if I start from that first one, the easy pace, I think most people talk about that as being the one where as you're running, you could hold a bit of a conversation. I think that's true to say, isn't it? So you're talking like perceived exertion out of 10, 2, 3, something like that. Really slow, really comfy.
I think in terms of like sweat levels, for me, that's often how I measure it as well. Because sometimes if you're a solo runner, because I completely agree, if I'm running with friends, then it's can I talk? But if I'm on my own, I find it hard to measure sometimes. But on an easy run, I guess it's going to be subjective based on how much you sweat and things. But for me, that tends to be like, I've got a little bit of a sweat on. I'm going to need a shower when I get home for sure. But it's not dripping. I haven't got soggy hair or anything. And I might be a bit pink in the cheeks, but I'm not Mrs. Beetroot, which is what happens for some of the other paces.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, if we have the rate of perceived sweat, we also have the rate of perceived breathing. So I think if it's an easy run, if it's really easy and it's within a certain time limit, so like 20 minutes of easy run, not kind of
I was going to
2
say,
hours
when
of
you
easy
start
run.
getting up to like, is an easy run ever easy? That's the
Not
question.
really,
but when we're talking shorter easy runs,
easy run in quotes, I don't necessarily hear myself breathing. The further up the pace kind of chart we get, the more audible my breathing becomes. And so I would say easy run down the bottom, can't really hear my breathing, especially if I'm listening to an audiobook.
Love this, by the way. I really like this. So easy run, we're talking like
yes,
maybe.
This is good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then building all the way up to a threshold run. So full tilt. Well, not quite full tilt. So full tilt would be really strides, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I was told, I think it was Jordan last year, and she said that, if you're 10 out of 10 exertion, like you can only hold that for a minute or less. So that however fast you're doing it, like you can't contain that for, that's not, you can't do a 5K in that, you can't do a 10K, you can't do any race in that. But normally in a training plan, they won't talk about ever doing 10 out of 10. They'll say maybe
I've
8
never seen that.
No. So the sort of 6 or 8 out of 10 rate of perceived exertion, that is when you start very audibly breathing, because that's hard work. So climbing up a mountain hard,
that's breathing, that's and it might also occasionally be the odd or sort of little, sometimes I end up hearing myself do a little grunt or a little kind of as I'm going along, like a dog.
Exactly. So that's your two bookends. Do that again. Sorry, I missed that one.
When a dog kind of is like wants to bark, but it doesn't open its mouth fully. So it's like that. Some of those kind of noises will escape me sometimes when I'm very occasionally. It could be something that I don't actually want to do on the podcast in case it's taken out of context, but that is almost like a moan or a cry.
Yes, don't do that.
No, I won't do that. But
the moan or cry, I definitely
do. I'm a vocal runner. I want to let everyone on that canal path know how I'm feeling.
I think I do that too. I definitely do that. I am vocal, particularly as it comes towards the end, and it's quite embarrassing. And you're right, I'm not going to replicate it here.
No,
This would be
it's
awful.
like it's primal, and so it's not good taken out of context.
A little bit childbirthy and or other things.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and then like in between, you've got different levels of breathing and sweat, haven't you? But the most important thing to realize is all of those rates of perceived exertion are your rates. They're not other people's. They are how you feel. Is it your easy, your steady, your half marathon pace? So don't fall into a trap of comparing yourself with others, which I still do. So it's a really hard thing to not do. But it's like we were saying right at the beginning, your fast is your fast and your easy is your easy. So these are all your times. They're deeply personal. You can keep them to yourself. So don't worry about that. But the reason why we're talking about those paces is that they will come up in your training plan, and it's worth adhering to and listening to your body to figure out how you're sweating and breathing and how hard these things are, because those sorts of runs that include those different paces are the things that will make you faster. I know I've said that before, but
they really are. I'm just going to say that I have such a soft spot for them. Like, if you're a person who is a bit nervous about doing some of that kind of running, because I think when I first saw it, I'm such a creature of habit. And I think a lot of that has to play into why I thought that I only had one particular pace, because I was just so comfortable doing this one type of run. And in the week, I would do exactly that, but a bit slower. And on the weekends, I would do exactly that, but a bit longer. And I think I was so nervous the first time somebody suggested. I think the first thing I ever did was a bit of fartlecking, which we mentioned in episode 2 as well, which is obviously the kind of speed play thing where it's less. I wasn't following a particular plan or anything, so I was just having a go at running a bit quickly and then slowing down, and then running a bit quickly and then slowing down. And I remember feeling like such an idiot, and I was so nervous, and it felt so weird the first time that I did it. But I really would encourage you, if you're somebody who is a bit nervous about giving some of that stuff a go, to try it, give it a crack, because I find those sessions go so quickly. If you're a gym goer, do it on the treadmill if you feel silly doing it out in public. But don't feel silly doing it out in public. It's fine. No one cares. No one's looking. I actually just have a real soft spot for them, and they are tough. They're the toughest session of the week. But as soon as I accepted that, now I don't mind, because I'm like, well, an extra bit of banana on toast in the morning, definitely a little Diet Coke afterwards for a treat. I just make a thing of it, and I'm like, that's my big session, and it goes in a flash because it's broken up into lots of little bits.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I mean, I much more enjoy them now. I used to hate them. Like just over a year ago, I used to absolutely hate them, but now I genuinely look forward to them, because it's like you say, they go fast, and it's sort of easy to see the time click past. Also, there's a thing, you feel so powerful.
You feel so powerful. Honestly, good point. Like, that is not to be underestimated. They are the only thing that has ever made me feel like an athlete.
Yeah. And I say, don't compare yourselves to others, and please don't. However, let me caveat that. Do if it's going to make you feel good, because don't if it's going to make you feel bad, but because there is something to be said for gently plodding on a treadmill, on a gym, next to loads of other people, plodding gently on a gym treadmill or whatever. But there is something to be said for whacking that speed up and really gunning for it next to lots of other people who are gently plodding.
Yeah,
and it makes you think,
nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I am training for something, actually. Yeah, I do have a time goal.
I am an athlete. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just going to call my coach after this, and then I'll probably go and have an ice bath, and championships this weekend. That is how it makes me feel, and I love it. I had it on Monday. I did my I had a really chunky one. It was brutal, but I was so proud of myself for doing it. And in the process of some of my steady bits, I actually overtook 2 teenage boys on the canal path.
Oh, the joy.
The joy. I know I should not be saying that in a way that's trying to discourage the youth and the adults of the future from being sporty. And I loved to see them running. I was so glad that they were doing that and that was how they were spending their Monday lunchtime. Great. But also it did make me be like, yeah, here I am, a 30-year-old woman. Goodbye. I'm flying past you.
I use it to my advantage both ways. If someone overtakes me and they are a young person, I think to myself, well, they're a young person. They've got time on their side. That's all fine. If I overtake them, I'm like, ha, look at me overtaking a young person. So yeah, it's or a bloke overtaking a bloke.
Yeah.
Oh, the feeling is insane. Even if you're only doing it for 1 minute.
But even if they overtake you back again when you go into your walking bit or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and top tip, if you are doing these intervals and you do overtake people, just make sure that after your minute, you very visibly then check your watch or your phone as you slow down. So people know that you're doing intervals rather than
that it's not that you're tired. I always do that. That's so funny. I always really obviously do that. I was actually going to say also top tip for that walkie bit. One of the best things that I've ever seen a coach say, and I think it was on Instagram, was don't try and beat the plan. And I think that goes to show for like that applies to your full plan. The easy runs, keep them easy. The long runs, make sure that you're not overexerting yourself and doing that thing of getting absolutely exhausted by the end of your run. Like they should feel like you're not running as fast as you possibly can, because that's not what they're for. They're about time on your feet and just slowly building that resilience and being able to run for longer periods, and spending time in zone 2, which is something that we always try and sort of slightly skirt around because we're not quite sure about the science of all of that, but supposedly good for making you faster. So same applies when it comes to those slower intervals during your interval runs. However, I will say sometimes if you're following a training app like KICKR or something, or if you have a plan that's written out where your paces are explained or whatever, sometimes those paces for the recovery periods in an interval session are quite hard to stick to. And the best advice that Jordan gave us, who coached us for the London Marathon last year, was actually those periods are about bringing your heart rate back down. They're not about matching that pace exactly for the entire time. So if you're struggling to hit something like 15-minute miles, sorry that me and Esther work in miles, translate at your will, kilometer heads, that for me is a pace that I find really, really difficult, because that's like somewhere between a very brisk walk and like not quite a run. I couldn't really do that in a run. So I tend to do half of that time or a third of that time walking, gently bringing my heart rate back down again if I've been really exerting myself, and then building back up to a gentle jog before I go into the next interval session. And that advice changed my life. Yeah.
That's it. It's really good advice, isn't it? You don't have to religiously follow that plan. Like you were saying, you don't have to stop at this point and start at that point. That building up gently or even building down gently is absolutely fine, as long as you're putting in the effort. You will definitely see rewards. Like running a bit faster than you feel comfortable is going to make your easy running feel more comfortable, and therefore it will make you faster. And definitely feel like a goddess, like a really powerful running goddess.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm actually really inspired. You know what? I'm looking forward to my interval session next week. It's going to be a lot more interesting than my long run tomorrow.
Yeah, that can sometimes feel like a bind. But
yeah, that's going to be a bit of a slog, but hey ho.
Hey ho. But yeah, we'll talk about how to kind of cope with race day and stuff like that a bit later on in the series. And I think we're going to have to reiterate how easy you run your easy runs, because that definitely helps with all of this.
Definitely. Are we doing a long run episode? Maybe we should, because I think that's a good one to talk about too, just in terms of like mentally and how you're making sure you're looking after your body if you're doing that kind of a repetition over and over and over again and you're not maybe used to that.
Yeah.
Let's do a long run episode.
Let's do it.
Committing us here and now.